Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Next on stage, we have a surprise for you. Well, it's not a surprise that I'm not going to give you something tangible, but we're very honored to have Colleen Coleman. She is the chairman for Hamilton Health Sciences.
Thanks, everyone. I will make a little correction. I'm the Director of Development for the Hamilton Health Sciences Foundation, not the chairman. But that would be a much bigger role than what I have. But thank you so much. And as Isma was gracious enough to recognize the event that was held in 2017 in November, it was a huge success, inspired by some of the members of the Gyncultural Society of Hamilton. So I see Swarsh and Salim are here, but the volunteer effort that the entire group put on was just phenomenal, and we were so delighted and proud and so humbled by the efforts that everyone put in and the success. During the time of the fundraising, one of the pieces of equipment actually became more expensive by $15,000. So the unbelievable success of the event helped us when we had that kind of inflation, which happens with medical equipment from time to time. So the cardiac program, we recently had our stewardship event when everything had come in, was tested and shown to be in good shape, and has gone into use at the Hamilton Health Sciences in the cardiac program. And so we're so delighted that it's been working out beautifully for our patients and families. So just wanted to say thank you to everyone again for all your hard work and the success. We have another campaign that we've started for some neurosurgical microscopes, and when we're complete, we will have 2 of them, very high definition advanced technology that will be benefiting patients for cancer, for spinal surgery, for trauma, stroke, and this will be for pediatric and adults. So we'll be the only site in Canada to have 2 of these very advanced microscopes. So that's something that's on the horizon. But I just wanted to wish everyone the very best of luck tonight with your fundraiser, and I hope everyone contributes to this very worthy cause. As Elizabeth has told us, the need is there. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you so much for here. So next on stage, we have Dr. Shiva, and so we will be working with you on stage. And let me give you guys a quick introduction of Dr. Shiva. So she graduated from the Rawalpindi Medical College in 2002, and those of you who know about Rawalpindi, you guys know how blessed that area is. She completed her pediatric residency from McMaster Children's Hospital in 2015. She is an assistant clinical professor at McMaster Children's Hospital, and she's a consultant pediatrician at NHS St. Catherine's General Hospital. So can I have Dr. Shiva on stage, please?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank Gyncultural Society and especially ISMA for giving me this opportunity to present on this delicate topic. And also I want to congratulate the whole team for organizing this event. It's a job well done. Okay, so I will try to complete the presentation in like few minutes, but as you all know, it's a very, very vast topic, very delicate. So I apologize beforehand if it seems like I'm rushing through some of the slides. So first of all, the introduction. I am going to do the overview on autism. Autism spectrum disorder is a biologically based neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by, mainly there are 2 aspects of it. One is the communication, and second is certain type of behavior that is seen in these kids. Social communication issues, social interaction issues, and they have repetitive, restrictive patterns of behavior, interests, and activities. Some of the early signs that can be picked up, again, it depends on what is the severity level of the autism. Sometimes the symptoms can be picked up early on and sometimes very late, but usually most of the, one of them is regarding the language. Otherwise, kids with the, sometimes the kids with the autism can be completely mute. They don't have any language development at all, or they hear some language, then they lose it. They may appear as deaf, respond unevenly or not at all to the sounds, difficulty consoling during the transitions, difficulty sleeping, they don't point, failure to bond, failure to develop relationships. In the older kids, there can be issues with when parents come to the office to talk to the physician, they may say that there are issues regarding hearing, vision, speech and language, some inflexible behaviors, some special interests, they have ritualized behaviors. Then comes the role of the primary care provider, because we as consultant pediatricians only come to meet the families once we get the referral from the primary care providers in the community that are our general family doctors. Identification of the kids at risk is extremely important. Routine developmental screens should be done at proper age, like 2, 6, 4 months, 18 months developmental screen, 2-year developmental screen. And ASD should be suspected in the kids who show certain signs regarding ASD. Then the comprehensive evaluation of the ASD begins, starting with the general pediatrician, and then as pediatricians we refer them to, especially in Hamilton, I want to just mention that, to the Ron Joyce Center, and in the Ron Joyce Center there is a whole team that assesses the kids that we send for the autism evaluation. That consists of developmental pediatrician, child psychiatrist may or may not be involved in the team, but then social worker, occupational therapist, physiotherapist if needed, and speech and language pathologist. The goals for the comprehensive evaluation. The goals are to determine if child symptoms meet the criteria for ASD, to determine what is the child's functioning level, and to determine if this is ASD with associated medical or mental health issues, or it is not ASD at all. Then starting off with the history, I'm just gonna skip few of the slides here, as history is self-explanatory. We go through what are the presenting symptoms, what is the family history, developmental history, and we do a thorough exam. But the most important thing in the history is that we go through certain associated conditions that can be present with ASD. There are disturbance in sleep, self-injury, learning disability, some possible seizures, depression, anxiety that can be associated with it. Regarding the diagnosis, there are many tools that are available. And according to the research and according to the reviews that are done, there is no one tool that is superior to the other one. I have not put all of them on the slide. There are many out there, but the common ones that are used are ADI, ADOS, CARS. You guys don't need to memorize that. It's just the tools to help diagnose or identify the kids with autism. The criteria that we follow is our DSM-5 criteria. Again, I just put it on the slides that we follow this criteria. I'm not going to go through that. It's basically the criteria that is for us to help us identify kids with ASD. It talks about that kids who have issues with verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and establishment of the relationships, maintaining the relationships, or who have certain types of behaviors that are basically stereotyped, repetitive, highly restricted or fixated interests, and sensory issues. All of these symptoms, if they are present, and they are present to the point that they affect or impair the functioning of the child and affect the family, we diagnose according to this DSM criteria. Then we assess what is the level of severity. Level of severity is also to identify what is the level of functioning of the child. There are certain levels to it. Level 1 is very high functioning autism, and with the intervention, they do really, really well. Level 2 is they are highly dependent on the family, but level 3 is severely autistic, completely dependent. Then talking about the overview of the management. Management comes, of course, all the management therapies were designed around autism and what are the symptoms and what those symptoms should be addressed. It is divided into behavioral therapy, then working on the functional skills, communication skills. Management goals are improve the social functioning, play skills, improve their communication skills, their adaptive skills, decrease non-functioning negative behaviors, and promote the academic functioning and cognition. It is always a multidisciplinary approach. The main people involved here are developmental pediatricians, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, social worker, and we as general pediatricians keep on following these kids in the background. Treatment modalities. The areas that therapists work on are behavioral intervention, educational intervention that comes in the school setting, then psychopharmacological is basically whenever there are associated medical conditions or mental health conditions, complementary and alternative therapies.
All right, our next speaker tonight is going to be Dr. Mohammed Zubairi. I would like to say a few words about him. Dr. Zubairi is an assistant professor at McMaster University. He's also a developmental pediatrician at Ron Joyce Children's Health Center in Hamilton. He has received his medical training from McMaster University and University of Toronto. He has completed his Master's of Education degree from Ontario Institute of Studies in Education. He also serves as a board member of the SAAC Autism Center, and he's involved in advocating for children with developmental disorders.
I didn't realize I was going to get that much of a ovation, thank you. मैं दूसरी चीज़ ट्राई करूँगा आप लोगों के साथ, and I apologize to the audience. I'm actually going to take this opportunity to speak to the audience in Urdu as much as I can. And part of that is because a lot of my own research focuses on how do we work collectively with families of diverse cultures and backgrounds. And because I happen to be a Pakistani background, मैं थोड़ी सी कोशिश करूँगा आप लोगों के साथ कि उर्दू में बताया जाए कि मेरी thoughts or opinions क्या हैं. Dr. Asim has already given a very good overview of what it is that we should be thinking about, very broadly speaking. लेकिन मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि organizing committee ने ये particular topic choose किया है क्योंकि it was in 2006 that, you know, as a medical student, पहली दफा मुझे autism की awareness शुरू हुई थी, and I was, you know, can't remember now, about 20 years old at the time, and even for me as somebody coming from a Pakistani background, I had never heard of autism, and now here I am, जो, you know, 9 से 5 हर रोज हैमिल्टन में मैं सिर्फ autism के बारे में सोचता हूँ और फिर 5 से 9 भी autism के बारे में सोचता हूँ रात में, partly because, you know, it's something that I'm continuing to learn about, and that's really what I want to share with you guys. So these aren't the right slides, guys, up over here, so this is a different deck. So मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि developmental pediatrician क्या है, और डॉक्टर आसम ने जो है developmental pediatrician के बारे में एक दो दफ़ा अलूड किया था. Basically वो pediatrician होते हैं जैसे 3 साल 4 साल रेजिडेंसी करते हैं पीडियाट्रिक्स में, फिर उसके बाद जाके 2 या 3 साल और ट्रेनिंग करते हैं। बच्चे जिनको डिफरेंट नीड्स होती हैं, जिनकी डेवलपमेंट अलग तरीके से हो रही है, उनको फिर उनके साथ काम करते हैं। तो मैंने अपनी ट्रेनिंग टोरंटो में करी, फिर उसके बाद टोरंटो में काम किया। अब मैं आपके हैमिल्टन में काम कर रहा हूँ, रॉन जॉइस चिल्ड्रंस सेंटर। और दूसरी पूरी दुनिया में जो है अलग अलग किस्म के डॉक्टर्स डेवलपमेंटल किस्म का काम करते हैं। जैसे पाकिस्तान में काफ़ी जो है न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट जो हैं, जो दिमागी डॉक्टर होते हैं, और डॉक्टर जाफरी बात करेंगे इसके बारे में, या साइकाइट्रिस्ट जो होते हैं जो मेंटल हेल्थ के बारे में करते हैं, या साइकोलॉजिस्ट, often they will overlap with developmental pediatricians। और ये जो फील्ड है वो यहाँ पे काफ़ी नॉन है कनाडा में, लेकिन दूसरी दुनिया में दूसरी मुल्कों में और अलग अलग जगहों में इतनी इसकी अवेयरनेस नहीं है। तो basically what I want to say is that as developmental pediatricians we exist, and we often exist in very specialized settings, such as the Ron Joyce Children's Health Center or other treatment centers that have been provincially funded in Ontario. Next slide, please. So ये जो स्लाइड है इसमें मैं आपको बस एक चीज़ बताना चाहता हूँ, जो मैं काफ़ी फैमिलीज के साथ जब मिलता हूँ उनको एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करता हूँ, कि जो बेसिक डेवलपमेंटल टूल जो होता है बच्चों के पास जब वो पैदा होते हैं शुरू में, वो एक तो देखते हैं और सुनते हैं। तो अगर आप सोचें कि बच्चा देखता नहीं या सुनता नहीं है, उसकी डेवलपमेंट जो है जिस तरीके से वो दुनिया के साथ इंटरेक्ट करेगा वो ऑब्वियसली अलग होगी, डिफरेंट होगी। लेकिन अगर हम फर्ज करें कि बच्चे की हियरिंग एंड विजन इज एक्चुअली फाइन, तो उसके बाद फिर बच्चा चलना सीखता है, बच्चा चीज़ों को छूना सीखता है और फिर बोलना सीखता है। लेकिन वो ये सारी चीज़ें क्यों कर रहा है? वो बच्चा जो है सीख रहा है बोलने के बारे में, वो बच्चा सीख रहा है चीज़ें छूने के बारे में, ताकि वो किसी और के साथ जाके फिर इंटरेक्ट कर सके। तो जो बड़े लोग होते हैं, बच्चे होते हैं, दूसरे बच्चे अलग अलग एजेस के, वो उनके साथ इंटरेक्ट करें। ऑटिज्म जो है बेसिकली स्पेक्ट्रम है, हमने एक दो दफ़ा उसके बारे में कहा है कि इट्स अ ब्रॉड स्पेक्ट्रम, और बच्चों को अलग अलग किस्म की डिफ़िकल्टीज हो सकती हैं। लेकिन जो मेन एरिया ऑफ डिफ़िकल्टी जो डॉक्टर आसिम कह रही थी, वो है सोशलाइजेशन में, कि जिस तरीके से बच्चा जो है दूसरों के साथ इंटरेक्ट करता है। अगर फर्ज करें उस बच्चे के पास ज़बान नहीं है, अगर कुछ बोल नहीं रहा वो बच्चा, तो बच्चा लोगों को देखेगा, वो बच्चा लोगों को चीज़ें दिखाएगा, वो बच्चा लोगों को चीज़ें देगा, वो खेलेगा, वो कोशिश करेगा कि मैं जाके अपने अम्मी अबू के साथ जाके मुझे उठा ले, कि मुझे खेले उसके साथ। अगर उस बच्चे को उस किस्म की डिफ़िकल्टीज हो रही है जहाँ पे आप उसका नाम पुकारो, वो ध्यान नहीं दे रहा कि वो बच्चा कमरे के आप उसका नाम पुकार रहे हैं, या वो आपको आंख मिला के नहीं देख रहा, या वो आपके पास आ नहीं रहा और आपको चीज़ें नहीं दिखाना चाह रहा है, या आपको देना चाह रहा, या फर्ज करें कोई चीज़ दूर जा रही है, जैसे जहाज़ होता है, और बोले पापा मामा जहाज़ जा रहा है इधर दूर, और फिर आपको देखे कि आप भी वही चीज़ देख रहे हैं। वो असल मेन जो मसला है, जो डिफ़िकल्टी होती है बच्चों को ऑटिज्म में, that's what the main issue is, and that's what we call social communication. So Dr. Asim presented that on a number of different times. Social communication is a concept, और जैसे हम चलना सीखते हैं, जैसे हम अपने हाथ यूज़ करना सीखते हैं, जैसे हम बोलना सीखते हैं, वैसे ही हम सोशलाइज करना सीखते हैं। और अगर हमारी सोशलाइजेशन में कोई डिफ़िकल्टी हो शुरू से, ये नहीं कि आप सही चल रहे हो फिर उसके बाद ये रोक दो, अगर शुरू से सोशलाइजेशन में डिफ़िकल्टी हो, वो मेन कोर फीचर, मेन असल चीज़ है ऑटिज्म के अंदर, जो हम नोटिस करते हैं और जो हम लोग जब बच्चों के साथ इंटरेक्ट करते हैं देखने की कोशिश करते हैं। और उसके बाद फिर obviously kids start in school and they go and there's expectations on them that they have to interact a certain way, but as there's more awareness about autism, which is what we're doing tonight, we recognize that this is a certain set of challenges or difficulties that somebody might have, and how do we better understand those, and then how do we support those challenges in the world that we live in. Next slide please. So, जो सबसे fascinating चीज़ थी वो मैंने Google से पूछा. You know, we all ask Google questions these days, right? So I asked Google. I said, Google मुझे ये बताओ कि autism को उर्दू में क्या बोलते हैं? और उसके पास जवाब नहीं था. They put up these things, right? That this is what came up on Google Translate when I said translate autism, but it doesn't capture necessarily what's at the essence of autism or diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. These are all things that my reading of Urdu is not very good, but I can figure this out, and it all captures elements of what autism is. Or next slide please. जब 1940s में, this was almost 60, 80 years ago, पहला जो साइकाइट्रिस्ट था लियो कॉनर के नाम से अमेरिका में, उसने डिस्क्राइब किया था केस रिपोर्ट में कि ऑटिज्म क्या है, सबसे पहली दफा 1940 से लेके आज तक काफी टाइम गुजर चुका है। उसके बाद हमने काफी चीजें सीखी हैं। जो नए क्राइटेरिया डॉक्टर आसम आपको बता रही थी DSM-5 पे, वो क्राइटेरिया over the years have changed a lot, but the core features, अगर आप इसमें देखें कि क्या लिखा हुआ है, maybe on the third line here, there is from the start an extreme autistic aloneness that whenever possible disregards, ignores, or shuts out anything, that comes to the child from the outside. So I don't want to say that this is how we think about autism completely, but it's not that there is a lack of willingness for that particular individual to engage with the world, but just the way in which they're engaging with the world might be different than what we're used to. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that from a parent. Is that we have a certain way of understanding. हम सोचते हैं कि ये normal है, ये abnormal है. लेकिन जब आप समझते हैं कि बच्चा किस किस्म से बड़ा हो रहा है, क्या उसकी abilities हैं, किस तरीके से वो बच्चा सोचता है, how that child thinks, then we're able to better address those challenges, right? और जब इस आदमी ने लियो कॉनर ने इसको describe किया था 1940s में, ये सोच रहा था कि autism जो है शायद schizophrenia की तरह है, लेकिन ये सही नहीं है. लोग सोचते थे कि there was an overlap between schizophrenia and autism, but they're actually considered to be very different. One's a mental health concern, the other is what we call a neurodevelopmental concern or consideration. So it's important to put those two apart. Next slide, please. How am I doing with my Urdu, by the way? I'm just curious. Okay. It's the first time I'm actually speaking in Urdu in a public setting, so I'm quite. I hope I'm getting the point across. Next slide, please. So, डॉक्टर आसम ने चीज़ों के बारे में ऑलरेडी बात कर दी है. जो कोर फीचर है वो सोशल कम्युनिकेशन का है, जो मैंने आपको बताया, जैसे बच्चा चीज़ें नहीं दिखा रहा है, चीज़ें पॉइंट नहीं कर रहा है, या खेल नहीं रहा है, इमेजिनेशन अपनी नहीं यूज़ कर रहा. और फिर जो सेकंड एरिया है वो बिहेवियर्स का है, और इसमें 4 चीज़ें आती हैं. एक ये बिहेवियर होता है कि उसको चाहिए बच्चे को कि हर चीज़ एक सी हो. फर्ज करें कि आप टूथब्रश बदल दें और दूसरा टूथब्रश इंट्रोड्यूस कर दें, या नया खाना इंट्रोड्यूस कर दें, जो खाना पहले दिन खाया था वो नहीं था, वो एक चीज़ होती है. दूसरी चीज़ होती है कि उस बच्चे को जो शौक है वो कम शौक है. फर्ज करें कि हर बच्चा जिसको फर्ज करें उसको he only wants to talk about the iPad, right? Or only wants to talk about Fortnite. That seems to be a thing these days, for instance, right? That some people might know about. और आप अगर कोई नई टॉपिक इंट्रोड्यूस करना शुरू करें तो उसको मुश्किल होती है उस टॉपिक पर बात करने के लिए. जो स्पीच एंड लैंग्वेज डिफिकल्टीज हैं, पहले हम समझते थे कि हर बच्चा जिसको ऑटिज्म है उसको ज़बानी मसला भी है, लेकिन ये ट्रू नहीं है. कई बच्चे होते हैं जिनको ऑटिज्म स्पेक्ट्रम पे होते हैं, लेकिन वो बहुत काफ़ी बात कर सकते हैं, लेकिन वो सिर्फ उन चीज़ों पे बात करेंगे जिनको उनका शौक है, जिनका उनका इंटरेस्ट है. और फिर आप भी नई टॉपिक इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे तो have difficulties with that. और ये सारे जो चैनल्स हैं, सुभान अल्लाह, कुदरती जो है, जो भी इसकी कॉज है अभी हमें नहीं पता है. डॉक्टर आसिम said this, we don't know what causes autism. People are thinking about it and we don't have an answer, so we move on beyond that because we want to think about how do we support individuals on the spectrum. It's a spectrum. और ये चीज़ बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है रियलाइज करना. जैसे आप कमरे में जाएं किसी, आपको 10 बच्चे मिलेंगे who have a diagnosis of autism, वो एक भी बच्चा बिल्कुल एक नहीं होगा. हर बच्चा जिसको ऑटिज्म होता है उसको कुछ ना कुछ अलग अलग किस्म की डिफिकल्टीज होंगी, लेकिन वो जो कोर फीचर्स हैं, that's going to be the same, right? That's going to be the thing that we base a diagnosis on. And then finally, I think I have a couple more minutes to talk, but basically, जो autism है, वो इंटेलिजेंस का मसला नहीं है. ये चीज़ समझने में मैं पेरेंट्स के साथ काफ़ी इस पर बात करता हूँ. इंटेलिजेंस अलग चीज़ है. ऑटिज्म मैंने आपको बताया 2-3 दफ़ा सोशलाइजेशन और बिहेवियर के बारे में. बच्चे जिनको ऑटिज्म होती है उनको इंटेलिजेंस की भी डिफिकल्टी हो सकती है, लेकिन वो एक चीज़ नहीं है. सही है. जो दिमागी टूल्स अल्लाह में दिए हैं that we use on a day-to-day basis, बच्चे जिनको ऑटिज्म है उनके टूल्स बहुत हाई हो सकते हैं, उनके टूल्स लो हो सकते हैं, लेकिन वो चीज़ और ऑटिज्म के डायग्नोसिस are two separate things, right? There's other diagnoses that go with our intelligence and our ability to think and learn, things like learning disability or intellectual disability, but that's not the same as autism. Back in the day, people used to probably confuse them a little bit when we had less awareness, but we've become more aware about this now. And so we try to separate out what is autism from difficulties with how we think and how we learn about the world, right? And how we problem solve. Next slide, please. This is a busy slide. We can talk about this afterwards. Next slide. So just finally the दो चीजें जो मैं आपसे कहूँगा, a lot of the diagnostic work जो लोग diagnose करते हैं autism या identify करते हैं autism वो pediatricians के साथ होता है, लेकिन where challenges come up or more specific questions आते हैं या कोई मुश्किल case आता है या कोई specific areas हैं उसमें फिर developmental pediatrician या psychologist या psychiatrist भी involve हो सकता है. तो मेरे पास for example जो सवाल सबसे ज़्यादा आता है वो ये होता है कि इस बच्चे को either 18 months old or 20 months old or 24 months old, does this particular child have autism? That's a broad question. और normally उन बच्चों को ज़बानी मुश्किलात होती हैं थोड़ी सी और उनकी hearing check हुई भी होती है और hearing सही होती है, तो hearing का मसला नहीं है. जो often parents, Dr. Shiva कह रही थी कि parents will come and that's a valid concern क्योंकि बच्चों को पुकारो तो जवाब नहीं देते, लेकिन ये नहीं कि उनका hearing का मसला है, वो ये है कि वो बस they're not relating the same way as another child might. और फिर she went through all the different diagnostic tools and stuff. लेकिन दूसरी जो मैं चीज़ आपसे highlight करूँगा, and that's why having all these agencies here is really good, is that many times it's not a physician or a doctor who brings up autism for the first time. It may be a therapist in some capacity, it may be a family member in another capacity that may suggest that it's worthwhile going forward with getting an assessment done. And I'm biased, obviously, because what I do is I do a lot of assessments, but I would say that alhamdulillah, we're blessed to have a wealth of professionals that are doing a lot of great work. And if a question comes up, or if you're worried about a family member, or thinking about, this child's development is not the same as, say, the other child's development, then there's lots of venues for support, particularly in the early childhood period. It gets trickier as you get older, and we'll hear a little bit more about that. But I think as a community, it's important for us to know that there is support, and a lot of those are publicly funded. There's also private supports for those that can afford that. But it is something that's out there, and I encourage all of our community members to reach out to those supports. Last slide. So ये 3 सवाल मेरे पास सबसे ज़्यादा आते हैं जब मैं डायग्नोसिस करता हूँ ऑटिज्म का. इसके जवाब अभी मैं नहीं दे सकता, we will have a chance to talk about them afterwards. लेकिन सबसे पहले पेरेंट्स पूछते हैं कि ऑटिज्म चला जाएगा फ्यूचर में नहीं जाएगा. That's the number one question that I get, right? The second question is कि पेरेंट्स पूछेंगे कि मैंने पढ़ा है कि ऑटिज्म is on a spectrum, मेरा बच्चा किस लेवल पे है या कहाँ पर है उस स्पेक्ट्रम पे. And Dr. Shiva was showing you the levels of severity or levels of difficulties that we might identify. और फिर काफ़ी लोग कहते हैं कि मैं नहीं चाहता कि मेरे बच्चे को कोई लेबल हो ऑटिज्म का या किसी और किस्म की डेवलपमेंटल डिसऑर्डर का. लेकिन मैं आपसे ये कहूँगा कि over the years we're very fortunate. There's so much awareness that's happening, at least in the Ontario setting. I can't speak for the rest of Canada, but we're lucky that there's more and more awareness happening and lots of agencies that are doing that in order to then facilitate कि अगर आपको information जाके स्कूल के साथ या therapist के साथ share करेंगे फिर उसका outcome जो है is going to be positive. And I encourage you to have those conversations with families so that there isn't anything that's kind of, and that's what we're doing here, right? We're sort of really talking about this so that you have greater awareness. So I think that's it. Last slide. Good. Oh, that's 10 minutes, right? Awesome. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. I just want to start by saying I feel like I no longer look like that picture. I'm about 10, 15 pounds heavier. My hair's curled. I think it has something to do with the stress of the job, perhaps, or the love that and the support that I've had from my wonderful community. I want to really start by recognizing the amazing work that these service providers and organizations here have done in the community. I've had the opportunity to work with some of you and to support some of you in the work that you do in supporting us as a community. And that's really what it's about. I find that when, and in my family, we have, my nephew is a child. He's 1 year old, and he's a person with special needs. And what we're learning now firsthand is that it's not a one-person struggle. It's really a family's challenge to overcome. It's a community's challenge to provide those services and the support for one another. And what I really appreciate is that level of support, how everybody works together hand in hand, from individuals to grassroots organizations and service providers to governments in providing that support. And for example, from the federal level, there are a number of ways that we support families that deal with, that provide support to and cherish and nurture children with different abilities. And some of those are providing disability tax credits, and also providing supplements to medical expenses that you may find on your plate. And we just recently in our legislation and in the House of Commons are working through a bill tackling exactly disabilities and accessibility as our young people with different abilities transition into what is a normal life. You know, we expect people or children to grow up and get on their feet and get those jobs and carry on. But we have to actively work to remove the barriers that exist in order to get to that level, in order to provide that meaningful employment and that fulsome life that I think everybody deserves. I want to thank Jinnah Cultural Society for really bringing everybody together to talk about this very important issue. Thank you for all of the sponsors who've come together and had this happen. Most importantly, thank you to each and every one of you who've come out and to learn more, to teach more to one another, to share your experiences, to share your stories, to share your knowledge. I think that the more we talk about it, the more we work with each other, the more support we're able to provide each other in dealing with challenges that we face with people and children with different abilities. So thank you once again, and I wish you all the best, and know that as your Member of Parliament in Mississauga Erin Mills, I'm happy to provide the support that you need and deserve in order to carry this banner forward, in order to continue the wonderful work that you're doing, each and every one of you. Thank you, and I wish you all the best in 2019.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your precious time. Thank you so much. So now we have something different. We don't have a speaker, but we have a speaker. But it's a digital speaker. We have a video presentation for you, and I'm going to ask Seth to please put it on. This video presentation contains someone who has a child with living currently with autism. His name is Mr. Chaudhary. And Seth, can I please have the video, please?
मेरा नाम सरफराज चौधरी है। ग्रोथ जो बिल्कुल नॉर्मल थी, उसने हल्के हल्के अल्फाज भी सीख लिए, बिहेवियर भी उसका नॉर्मल था, खाता पीता भी नॉर्मल था। जब ये तकरीबन कोई 1.25 साल के करीब हुआ है इसकी उम्र, तो हमें महसूस हुआ कि ये बच्चा जो है ये अकेला खेलता रहता है, किसी बात में तो जो नहीं देता। मेरे एक दोस्त है डॉक्टर साहब, वो हमारे घर आते थे, तो उन्होंने कहा यार तुम्हारा बच्चा ठीक है, इनका दिमाग बड़ी हुई है कि सारा दिन कोने में बड़ा खेलता रहता है, बिल्कुल तंग नहीं करता है। कहने लगे नहीं, इसको कोई प्रॉब्लम है, शायद आइडियोलॉजी का प्रॉब्लम है। तो मैंने कहा तुम आइडियोलॉजिस्ट हो, तो इसको टेस्ट कर लेते हैं। टेस्ट किए तो आइडियोलॉजी की रिपोर्ट भी ठीक निकली। फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता मेरे उसी डॉक्टर ने, उसी दोस्त ने बताया यार तुम्हारे बच्चे के साथ थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है, जो कि ऑटिस्टिक हो सकता है ये, क्योंकि इसकी लर्निंग कैपेबिलिटीज डिफरेंट है, इसकी बिहेवियर डिफरेंट है। सो इसके लिए कुछ और जरूरत है। आजकल तो मेरे बेटे ने जो है अपने अल्फाज बोलने शुरू कर दिए, क्योंकि आपको पता छोटे बच्चे होते हैं वो सीखते हैं अम्मा अब्बा ऑफिस टेलीफोन इस टाइप की चीज़ें, तो वो सीख रहा था। लेकिन फिर वो लूज होने शुरू हो गए, वो नॉर्मल टोटली नॉर्मल हो गया। उसकी माँ के लिए खास तौर पर ये सब करना बहुत ही मुश्किल था। और वो बच्चा जब हम कनाडा में लेके आए 2-2.5 साल का था, वो सारी रात रोता रहता था और सारी रात हंसता रहता था। उसको टाइम का बिल्कुल कोई आइडिया नहीं था। उसकी माँ बेचारी सारी रात उसके साथ जाया करती थी और उसका गला खुश्क हो जाता था। हम उसको पानी पिलाते थे, पानी नहीं पीता था। और फिर क्या हुआ कि जब हमने अदारों से कंसल्ट किया, डिफरेंट अदारों से जो इस टाइप के माहिरीन से कंसल्ट किया, उन्होंने इसका एनालिसिस किया। उसके बाद उन्होंने कहा कि आपको भी एज ए पेरेंट बहुत सारी ट्रेनिंग की जरूरत है। तो हमें उन्होंने बहुत सारी ट्रेनिंग दी इसके लिए। और उसके बाद हमें बताया कि इसका ये बिहेवियर हो तो इसे इस तरह ट्रीट करना है, ये तो इस तरह ट्रीट करना है। तो हम लोगों ने एज ए पेरेंट भी सीखा। और फिर उस बच्चे की भी यहाँ काफ़ी ट्रेनिंग हुई है, BA टाइप की, बिहेवियर एनालिसिस हुआ, सब कुछ हुआ, उस टाइप की ट्रेनिंग होती रही। और फिर जब उसने स्कूल जाना शुरू किया तो स्कूल में भी उसकी काफ़ी ट्रेनिंग हुई। और स्कूल और हमने और वो जो अदालत थे, हम लोगों ने एक अपना नेटवर्क बनाया जिसके थ्रू उस बच्चे की हर चीज़ को हम ऑब्जर्व करते थे, शेयर करते थे और सोचते थे कि उसमें इम्प्रूवमेंट कैसे लाई जाए और आपस में डिस्कस करते थे ओपनली। ओपन कम्युनिकेशन इज मस्ट। उसके बाद दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह हम लोग मुसलमान हैं और हमारा ईमान है कि जो हमारे ऊपर जब भी कोई मुश्किल आती है अल्लाह ताला हमारी मदद करता है। वो हमें इतनी हिम्मत, ताकत और इतनी जुर्रत दे देता है कि हम उसको फेस कर सकें। मैं तो खैर बाप था, थोड़ा सख्त रहता हूँ उसके साथ, उसकी माँ तो उसके साथ बहुत नरम रहती है। और अभी भी हमारी फैमिली का ये सूरत हाल है। फिर उसकी माँ आम बच्चों को देखती है तो रो पड़ती है कि मेरे बेटे के साथ ऐसा क्यों हुआ, हमारे साथ ऐसा क्यों हुआ। लेकिन ये खुदा की देन है, उसने एक फरिश्ता दिया है, ना उसको अच्छाई का पता है ना उसको बुराई का पता है। और उसकी वजह से न जाने कितनी रहमतें हैं जो हमारे फैमिली के ऊपर नाजिल होती हैं, हमारे दोस्तों के ऊपर नाजिल होती हैं, हमारे पड़ोसियों के ऊपर नाजिल होती हैं। वो कैन बच्चे। तो मेरे भाइयों, मेरी बहनों, वो दोस्त जो इन मराहल से गुजर रहे हैं, मुझे उनसे यही कहना है कि अल्लाह ताला ने अगर हमें ये इम्तिहान किए हैं तो हमारे ऊपर रहमत भी की है और हमें हौसला भी दिया है। आए हम मिलकर बात करते हैं इस टॉपिक पे, कभी नहीं शर्माना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये मसला ऐसा है कि इसकी अभी तक कोई भी वजूहात सामने नहीं है। कोई कहता है कज़न मैरिजेस हैं, कोई कहता है ये वो है, लेकिन ये सारी फर्जी बातें हैं। तो आए हम मिलकर इसका मुकाबला करते हैं, मिलकर इंटरवेंशन और मिलकर मसाइल का हल ढूंढते हैं। और आज हम इसीलिए यहाँ इकट्ठे हुए हैं। तो चले हम आपस में शेयर करते हैं और केयर करते हैं बच्चों की, और इनको विकास में काम करते हैं और अपनी जिंदगी में आसान बनाते हैं, उनको उनकी जिंदगी में आसान बनाते हैं। तो वो फिर शरीर बनाने के लिए जो भी हो सकता है मिलकर इकट्ठे करते हैं। शुक्रिया, अल्लाह हाफिज।
Our next guest speaker tonight is Dr. Sidra Jafri.
So enough about me. I think I have touched. So I'm from Karachi. I did my med school there. I did my residency there. I did my neurology fellowship there. But still, I felt that I did not know enough about children with special needs, and that led me to come here to train in developmental needs, and that's what I hope to bring back to Pakistan. So they have already touched upon what are the 3 cardinal features that we look at when a child comes with the suspicion of autism. Most importantly, the social skills, the repetitive behavior, and problems with the social interaction. As they have touched upon, it's a spectrum or continuum. So I show you the picture. So it's like a rainbow, and every child is different than the other. There are children who are high functioning, meaning that they have a high cognitive level with their social impairments, but they are the ones who function at a higher level. But then there are children who are the classic autism, having social impairment significant enough to impact all aspects of their life. So this is a number from CDC, 1 in 59. And symptoms usually appear by 2 to 3 years, but we have seen patients after first year of life coming with these symptoms. So the red flags, so there are few slides that I would want you to take back home, right? So for a 6-month-old, what should be a sign that concern parents? Not having smiles or expressions, joyful expression or shared enjoyment. At 9 months of age, no babbling, no sounds or again facial expressions. At 12 months, no babbling or response to me. By 12 months, there is no back and forth exchange, nor there is waving or playing peekaboo or doing play that is expected from that age. And by 16 months, if a child does not have words, that would raise concerns, but we have to look at it in a holistic manner. Just not having words is not enough, but having facial expression, having non-verbal communication is more important. And then by 24 months, again, not being able to make meaningful two-word phrases. So in infants, what are the red flags or the signs that we can think of? So unusual visual fixations. That means a child is not interested in the pleasure that he's going to get from the toy. That means if he has a red, he won't be interested in mouthing to explore or shaking. Rather, he will be examining it as a thing of intense interest and not focusing on his parents or people who are trying to engage him in that part. Then, abnormal repetitive behavior have been touched upon, like hand flapping, spinning. So not for an infant, but similarly, hand movements that are peculiar and are non-functional. Then, delayed intentional communication. So if you guys imagine a child who cannot speak, but would make sure that you understand his or her needs by ways, by gestures, by expressions. And the child with autism will not be able to do so. And then decrease interest in the interaction. So again, this slide says it all, that what causes autism, we don't know. And it's actually a complex interaction. So there are genetic factors, but that does not mean that one gene has been identified to cause autism. No. There are thousands of genes being explored, and even having that genetic mutation will not result in having autism. So they are saying that on top of having the gene, you have to have another thing that is impacting. Could be environment, could be anything else, we don't know. Diagnosis, Dr. Autism has done that in a great deal. I'm not touching on that. So just these two slides that I thought would try to encompass the brain structure differences that occur in children with autism. So actually, this is a work in progress. Nobody exactly knows what's happening. As we all know, that there are different parts of the brain performing different functions. The frontal lobe is used for the high functioning executive function, that means managing, planning and everything. Then there is on this side of the brain where we process our sound-oriented memory. Then this is visual memory. So all of these parts of the brain are working, but they are not in isolation but in connection. So what happens in children with autism, it has been observed that these connections are different than typical children. So there is this part of the brain called the amygdala, and amygdala has been our emotion center, emotion regulation center. So it has been seen that there are structural differences in amygdala. Then this part of the brain, the cerebellum. In biology, as a biology student, we learned that its primary task is to manage the balance, but that's not the case. It is also involved in the emotion regulation, sensory processing. So these different parts are involved. Researchers have shown that the brain of a child with autism is larger than his typical peers. So the brain consists of two kinds of cells or two kinds of areas basically. So there is gray matter and white matter.
So gray matter is the part where the cognition occurs. That means, like the analogy that I will give you, imagine Hamilton. Hamilton has electricity corporation, it has a building that deals with gas, it has a building that deals with the fire and everything. But they are not connected by road. Then what is the purpose? So there is an impairment in association. And it has been seen that there are early white matter differences in the ASD brain that might explain that why do they function atypically. But this is what we have right now. So if we see the emotion regulation center, for us, a simple, our emotions are regulated and it depends on the emotional stimulus that we have. But for a child with autism, that emotional stimulus might be overwhelming. So something that you might find trivial might be extremely tragic for that child with autism. Then the cerebellar and the sensory system. So as in our practice, we see children with autism having sensory seeking and sensory avoiding behaviors. Meaning, they would want to hug everybody tightly. They would want to touch every surface. They would want to put objects that are not edible in their mouth just to explore the touch. But then there would be some kids who would not try food, who would not wear different kinds of clothing, who would not experiment on textures. So that's there. Then the temporal lobe that is involved with the processing of the speech or understanding of it. So it might happen that an individual with autism, although might appear to be fluent but might not understand what is being spoken to him. So he might not get your jokes. He might not understand the sarcasm. So that could be the case. So to end my presentation, I admire Dr. Bratton, and she is an individual with autism, high functioning one. And she has been an advocate for individuals with autism. So the way she describes it is that it is a neurological disorder, not caused by bad parenting, caused by abnormal development in the brain. The emotional circuits are abnormal, and also the differences in the white matter. And as she has given the analogy of the computer cables that are just hooked differently. Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Vanessa Tahir. She's a behavior analyst by profession.
Hi, just wanted to sound check. Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Vanessa Tahir. And before I get started, I just wanted to mention that although I work for the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, which is in Ottawa, the views I'm presenting here are entirely my own and may not represent those of my employers. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay. So we've heard from a lot of great speakers so far and learned a little bit about what autism is and the ways in which it affects individuals. It can be incredibly stressful for families to get a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder for their child, and many often struggle to process it and make sense of what it is. The point that in this experience, the experience of families that I wanted to speak to, is now that you've received a diagnosis, what should you do about it? So moving past the diagnosis. In our particular culture and in our community, there's certainly quite a bit of stigma attached to having a child or a family member with special needs. The more pronounced those needs are, the more distressing it can be for the family. However, it is at this time that it's important to be proactive and take charge of creating a vision for your child and your family's future. There's years and years of research demonstrating the importance of early intervention, and we should be asking the question at this point, how can we live our child live their best life? So we've learned quite a bit about the different treatments that are available for autism. So there might be a little bit of overlap in the information that I'm presenting and the things that we've heard already in tonight's event. As we know, autism is a developmental condition that is lifelong in nature. There are many different treatments available for the symptoms of autism. In other words, autism results in various deficits, social and communication deficits, challenging behaviors, and repetitive behaviors. Treatments typically focus on improving these areas. For example, speech therapy focuses on speech and language and communication. Occupational therapy may focus on coordination, balance, fine motor skills, sensory integration. Physiotherapy focuses on physical activity, and there are endless possibilities for treatments. So there's recreation therapy, art therapy, music therapy. The list is endless, as has been mentioned before. Typically, a team of multidisciplinary professionals is required to address the wide range of needs that are experienced by children and youth with autism. It can be quite overwhelming for parents to navigate through these endless options. So one of the treatment options that is available is behavior therapy or applied behavior analysis, as it's more formally called, which is where I come in. I'm a behavior analyst. So speaking a little bit more to the endless treatment options, it is worthwhile to remember that as a parent of a child with autism, you are the strongest advocate in their life, in your child's life. When looking at treatment options, or if you're already going through an intervention, it's important to be well informed and to do your homework. So the questions that you may want to ask are, is there any research supporting the treatment model that you're considering? If so, is it well-designed research? How much evidence is there to say that this treatment works? And if it does work, what exactly does it work for? We always want to view different treatment options with a critical lens. This is really how you can be a champion in your child's life and maximize the chances of them getting effective evidence-based treatment. So what is ABA, applied behavior analysis? It is one of the evidence-based treatments, one of the evidence-based treatment models available for autism that has decades of research supporting its use for individuals specifically with autism spectrum disorder. The research is ongoing and expanding every day. The overarching objectives of ABA mainly include increasing adaptive skills and adaptive functioning and decreasing challenging behaviors that individuals with autism may experience. Early intensive behavioral intervention, or IBI, as some of you may be familiar with, aims to teach skills to younger children, hopefully immediately after their diagnosis. That's not always possible. Teach them to approximate developmental norms. So in other words, the goal is if they're not developmentally at the same level as their peers, the goal is to teach them those skills so that they can get a little bit closer to that level and integrate a little bit better in school and as they grow older, integrate in society. The types of goals that may be targeted within ABA, so speaking to specific life domains, behavior analysts work on anything from feeding, sleep, compliance and cooperation, reducing aggressive behaviors, increasing social skills, and increasing communication skills. Okay, so here's a very, very brief lesson on analyzing behavior. As I mentioned before, we look at the function of behavior when we're doing assessment. So in order to determine why behavior is happening, we break it down into these three components. And so it's the ABC is sort of a simple acronym to remember. And it's really the C that is our function, and that tells us why a behavior might be happening. So the A is the antecedent. The antecedent is something that happens right before, immediately before the behavior happens. The behavior is behavior, so anything you say or do that other people can see is a behavior. And the consequence is what happens right after the behavior. So for example, me doing this presentation to you guys is a behavior. The antecedent in this case was I was asked to do a presentation. So I was invited to do the presentation, that the behavior was me during the presentation, and if my behavior is followed by a clapping and cheering from you guys, that is the consequence. Now, every time I do a presentation, if the audience claps and cheers for me, my behavior is likely to increase, and I'm more likely to do reinforced by your clapping.
So occupational therapists work with children from the age of infancy right up to 18, or I should say a pediatric occupational therapist. And we work in the home, in the school, in hospitals, in clinics, basically wherever your child needs to be able to function. And we try to look at the whole child. We believe that every single one of us, every one of you here in this room, has a different, unique brain and different, unique strengths and challenges. Autism is simply a collection of skills that have been categorized and given a name. But every single child, even every single child with autism, is different. Every child has a unique set of strengths and a unique set of challenges, and it's our job as their parents, as their community members, as their teachers, as their healthcare professionals, to help them reach their full potential. And what we want to do is help them recognize the amazing strengths they have, because many of the things that we know about autism is a neurodiverse situation, but many of them are very, very intelligent, very smart. There are lots of people working with my husband at Amazon or at Google who are on the autism spectrum for sure. Lots of people with autism that are in IT. And so we try to help the kids understand that there's no such thing as normal. Not one person in this room is normal. We are all different, and that's a wonderful thing. And we want to try and help these kids realize what they have about them that is amazing and that they can contribute to their family, to their community, and to the world. Okay? So, how do we do this? So for the next slide, we look at assessment. We try to look at, as occupational therapists, we look at self-care, so how the child can dress themselves, grooming, toileting, eating, sleeping. We also look at productivity. So for children, that means school and play. Both of those things are the way that they work, that they learn. So we look at how do they do in their academics, reading, writing, how do they process things, their emotional regulation, their social skills. And usually what this looks like is I go to their home for one visit and I go to their school for one visit. And we watch and observe how they do these things. And we also do some standardized assessments. And we can compare how they're managing to what the developmental expectations are for their age. The other area that we assess is leisure, because it's very important for children to be able to play, because that's how they learn. But it's also really important for them to be involved in leisure because it's such an amazing way for them to develop their motor skills, their sensory skills, their social skills. It also helps them learn to pay attention, follow directions, be able to follow a group plan. So not just what they want to do, but what the class wants to do or what the soccer team wants them to do. And this picture here shows you one of the clinics that I work at in Guelph. We always use fun, functional activities. We train at universities with physical therapists, but the way we're a little bit different is occupational therapists tend to use functional, play-based activities. So I don't give exercises and use weights and things like that, but we do things like there's a boy having to crawl through a tunnel there, and in doing that, he has to figure out how to coordinate his body, coordinate his muscles. He has to follow the directions to start at one end and come out at the other end, and it's fun. And this was a boy who doesn't really know how to play. He's on the autism spectrum, and he doesn't really know how to do this game. So even just in trying to learn the instructions, that has a whole bunch of different cognitive skills involved there too. So after assessment, we look at treatment. basically, looking at the self-care, productivity, and leisure, we decide which areas do they already have good strengths in, and we let them know that. And that in itself is a really important treatment, to be able to say, look at how well you can do this, look at how well you can do that, and making them feel confident and building their self-esteem. And then we look at the things that were a little bit hard and try to help them either learn new skills or change the environment or change the expectations. So for self-care, if they need to learn how to dress or groom or toilet, feed themselves, or learn different self-regulation strategies, we will work with the parents at home and with the teachers at school to use different strategies to help them become more independent. And depending where they're at on the spectrum, some kids that are very high functioning, they can learn these things quite quickly and they can be very independent. For some kids that are quite significantly affected by autism, that progress may be slower. But every single child will always continue to grow and learn. We are still growing and learning in our 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. So there's always potential for change. Some of the things we use, here's an example, a visual schedule. So we'll have different pictures of the things that they need to do to be able to do something independently. Depending on the age of the child, we might just use a couple of pictures, or if the child is able to handle a lot of them, then we might have their whole day laid out with a visual schedule. The other thing that we do is help to change the environment. So Relaxation Station is a group that I run very often. Many kids on the autism spectrum, but also with different diagnoses, can have emotional regulation challenges and sensory challenges that make some of our regular environments a little bit too much, too loud, too bright, too many social exchanges that are expected. So we talk about creating a relaxation area at home and in the classroom or in the school somewhere where the child can go if they're feeling that things are too much. So that's one of the things that we do as OTs. The other thing we try to do is help them become more engaged and have more success at school. So we talked about the visual schedules. We also teach different activities to strengthen their motor skills, and we do a lot of consultation with teachers to try to help them understand autism and understand some of the accommodations that the children might benefit from. And the other area of treatment, there you go. There's an example for the emotional regulation, using some visuals and helping the child be able to say, this is how I'm feeling. Next. And the last is for leisure. It's really important that kids find activities that they enjoy, that gives them joy, and that they can learn cognitive and physical games and activities that help them develop skills, but also develop some friendships. And sometimes we'll even say, you don't have to be on a team with 20 other kids. You could even just do, say private swimming lessons with one other friend. Or, pick games that require, interaction with one or two other people. So another way that we can kind of accommodate depending on what works for that child. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is just a quick video, because again, I think to actually see things and feel things is a little bit better understanding. Excuse me. So this is just one video that shows some sensory motor play. And this would be for a child that maybe needs some development of their gross motor skills, but this also encourages some play and other cognitive and sensory skills as well.
Like Thank you. Ready? Raise your arm. Put your arm up. Twist around, twist around, twist around. This is the way we twist around like that. Thank you.
So that's just a quick demonstration of some of the sensory stuff we do at the clinic. If you have any questions about occupational therapy, you can chat with me after. I know you're all hungry. And there are many occupational therapists available in Hamilton between the different hospitals, clinics, private practice. Let me know if you want to speak after dinner or even during dinner. I'm not worried if you want to come over and ask even while I'm eating. Okay? Enjoy your meal.
Can I please have Mr. Usman give a token of appreciation to Ms. Nicole? So the next presentation is one of the most interesting one. I personally love it a lot, and it's very educational. So can I have staff put on the presentation?
Assalamu alaikum.
Can I have the lights turn off, please?
I'm a mother of 4 children. Mashallah, I have 1 daughter and 3 boys. And my second child, which is my eldest boy, he was diagnosed with the autism that we are discussing today. When did I find out about the autism that he had? He was about, I believe he was around 18, 19 months, and he was just doing very abnormal type of behaviors that basically when they tell us what's going on, is it a red flag or not? He would not look into anybody's eyes, so no eye contact at all. He would scream and yell. He would not point, and he would not show me or my husband what was wrong with him. So he would just start screaming on top of his lungs, and he would scream, scream, scream until one of us would find it somewhere underneath the floor, let's say a piece of toy that he likes. Another thing I noticed, he started walking on his tippy toes a lot. And then he started eating paints off of the walls and stuff, and then he would rock himself and touch himself and rub his hands. And he would start lining toys in a line, so it would never put the blocks on top of each other. He started putting the blocks on the side. So for me, I guess I had a daughter before, and a lot of people told me, oh, he's a boy. It's normal, boys are slower, and that they'll come around 4 or 5 years age and will do it. But the fact that he was lining things and eating paint and not looking into the eyes and screaming and yelling, not saying anything. He was about 24 months now, and he was not saying anything. He would not look into my husband's eyes or my eyes, and he would just hide himself. And it was just very not normal. So we were just like, okay, there's a red flag. Once I found out about autism, that he had it, I was really emotional. I started crying in front of the doctors and nurses. I even went to my mom, my dad, my family, and started crying. But at that point, a lot of my mom, she said some stuff that hurt me, because she said that he's perfectly fine. He's just a boy. Boys are late at this stuff. But I knew for a fact that there was something wrong with him, and this is the reason why I took him there. But my mom was like, you know, you're the crazy one. There's nothing wrong with him. And I knew there was something wrong with him, as much as my mom yelled at me. Even my husband, he was like, there's nothing wrong. He's just a boy, you're just analyzing it too much. But I knew as a mother that there was something wrong with him, because he couldn't express his feelings towards me. He couldn't express himself. And you know as a mother that there's something wrong. And what hurt me the most was I had no family support when this happened. And I did everything most people to help my son. Sorry. When I was getting the therapies done too, I remember my mom, my husband giving me looks from the back that, why are you doing this? He's perfectly fine. He's just a little boy. He's gonna be fine. I took him mostly outside because I found out that, autistic children are not social. They do not interact with other people. So I started pushing him, taking him out of his comfort zone because he did not want to be around other people. He wanted to be alone. He sat alone. I started putting him amongst other children and took him to the park. What I want to say to parents is that they should be there with their children all the time, and especially when people ask, hey, why are you not bringing your children to this event or that? There's sometimes red flags where people don't bring their children around and people are like, where are your children? I notice a lot of people just hide their children. They don't bring them out. They'll say, oh, they're busy, they're not here, they have some sort of sports or they have a game. Whereas they're covering up the fact that there's something wrong. There's a lot of parents that just cover it, that there's nothing wrong with them, or they will not take them, which can become worse for the situation for the children. The best is bring your children out, speak to them, go to classes or go to group sessions where you can sit down and there's other autistic children where they can play. For my son, I take him to some Olympics games where there's autism children there and they all play together, and this way they relate with each other. So if one of them is more autistic and a different spectrum, they can play with the other one, or the other one can help the other autistic child that is lower in the spectrum. So it's different how they see things and how they do things. There's some that can have a life, they can get married, have children. Some of them can't. They have other problems. Don't be ashamed of your children. That's the biggest. Don't be embarrassed by your children. They're very, very, very important. And you might learn something very valuable from them.
Thank you so much, Sana, for sharing this experience with us. बहुत मुश्किल होता है parents के लिए, especially एक mother के लिए, to come out and to openly talk about इस तरह का experience that you have gone through. So we really appreciate for you for doing this for us. We would like you to come up and please receive your token of appreciation. Sana.
Thank you so much, Sana. I know how difficult it gets because while I was editing this video, it was way more than you guys have seen. And you're very, very great. So on to our next speaker. He's sitting right in front of me. This is just a joke, anyways. So he's a father of 2 autistic children. He's an educated strength in business and political policy. Works with established network of community development organizations. Former board member for the Canadian National Autism Foundation. Planning member of Give Proof to Our Youth. He brings a powerful area of lived experience to public forums while promoting awareness and acceptance for all. Can I please have Mr. David Starr on stage with us? Thank you.
It's great to be here this evening. About 10 years ago, I came to the realization of something that I was being told for about 7 years of my oldest child's life. And that was that potentially he had autism. I didn't know what autism was. And so at every turn, I fought back. I actually denied that anything could be wrong with a child of mine. And so, for about a decade now, I've been coming to events like this to let parents know that it's okay. One, it's a journey for us all. And two, that there's an opportunity for our children to live a dignified and whole life, even with challenges. I do not use the term disability. I celebrate abilities. So my goal here tonight is to speak to you as a parent. We heard some great speakers before me tonight that were able to explain to you, the neurological and the educational component, the information that we have available and the research. My hope tonight is to let you know that our society as a whole is a community. And we have many communities within our larger, greater community. But it takes a community to raise a child. And so, even though we are conditioned to believe that independence is our ultimate goal, I have to tell you, it's a balance of independence and supports from great communities like yours that makes it so much better and so much more dignified for people to live a full and wholesome life. And that includes even our typical human beings. So with or without autism, each one of us needs our neighbors to be more successful. So, thank you. I'm getting a lot of applause and I really enjoy that. That means I'll come up more often, I think. Is that the scenario? So I'm going to go through some slides and we'll kind of go through it. I'm not going to repeat things that have already been said, but I'm going to emphasize some of the important parts of it. So I'm a father of 6 children, 6 wonderful children. 2 of my children live with autism. And just like Sana did that video before, I'm kind of the male version. I have all that emotion built up inside me, and that's what it's like to have a child with autism. And in my case, I've been blessed with 2. So we can go. This is my oldest son, Christopher, and this is my middle child, Stephen. And Christopher is theoretically high-functioning ASD diagnosis. And Christopher, for the first 7 years of his life, struggled with something I didn't understand. And so I would get calls from the school telling me that my son should be assessed. And I would tell them, excuse me, you're hired to teach my child. And if you can't do it, I will get somebody else that can. And let me tell you, it is not ignorance that puts us there. It is simply a lack of understanding. I simply had no knowledge about autism. And that's why events like this are so critically important, because we often experience things that we don't understand. And so instead of dealing with them, we tend to avoid them. And that was me. I live a much different lifestyle now. And that's what I'll tell you. Autism is not just something that somebody is diagnosed with, but it's an absolute journey, not for the individual, not for the family, not for just the community in itself, but for society as a whole. This is Stephen. He's my middle child. Stephen, unlike Christopher, who was denied supports because of my stubbornness for the first 7 years of his life, Stephen received supports early on. Building understanding Stephen was able to get supports at the age of 3 years old. He was much more challenging to diagnose, but as an advocate for autism, as a parent that fully understood not only my conditioning but his, I was able to push assessment through. And that's the understanding that it takes for parents in our society. We are getting much better, so there is no denial there. In the last 10 years, we have made strides in the world of autism. But Stephen is low functioning, so Stephen will always live with supports. But through early intervention, he has been very successful in celebrating his abilities. So we've been able to hone in on challenges that he has, emphasize those challenges, and be much more successful in those areas. Unlike Christopher, who unfortunately didn't receive services early enough, that those challenges, some of those challenges will be lifelong for him. And as a parent, that's hard. That's very difficult to accept. But acceptance is the first step. So this is really about what I'm talking about earlier, is that I'm not here really to talk about the diagnosis, but more how we live each and every day and how we interact with each other. So, again, you've heard a lot about what autism is, so I don't normally have that wonderful educational pre-introduction to one of my presentations, so I have to do it myself, but this was wonderful. So again, the spectrum of autism is quite large, and so we look at all of the different facets of autism, and again, not one of them simply makes up autism, but it's a large array. So again, you can see my son, Stephen, is interacting at all different levels. Stephen is considered low functioning. And so Stephen is able to participate in sports. I read regularly with all my children. So that's another part of this. We talked about siblings earlier. Just want to emphasize, a typical life for the siblings is essential because they are also involved in those challenges day to day. And so that is very, very important that we allow them to live within their capacities, enjoy the life that they want to enjoy. So as parents, we have to separate ourselves amongst all of the different capacities that might make up our families. And so we can't restrict and hold back certain siblings simply because one sibling has challenges. We have to appreciate that each and every child that we have in our home will find their own capacities as they move forward. And as parents, we are there to support each and every one of them. So I see that's questions, so I think that maybe that's the end. I don't know. Go. Actually, I want to touch on this one. So we talked about organizations, wonderful organizations, and not to diminish any organizations, but these are wonderful organizations that I've become familiar with over the last decade. And ones that the reason I put them on there is because I'm very confident that if you interact with them in any way, shape, or form, that you will receive a dignified correspondence and factual information. And so Autism Ontario, the Canadian National Autism Foundation raises funds for research-based and programs for individuals living with autism, all very important to have an inclusive society. And Autism Canada, who looks at the national perspective. So that's very, very important. Go ahead, please. Again, parents' instincts. Sana, you touched on this earlier. Assessment is not the end, or not the beginning, the end, and all of the chapters in between. But assessment is an opportunity to ensure that the supports that your child may need is there. Okay, so that could be minimal supports, it could be no supports. Maybe your child is simply progressing at a reasonable rate. the assessment, I was extremely afraid because I was scared. I was scared of the outcome. And I didn't know at that time what it meant. I know better now, but again, I have to express to you, it's okay. I still am emotional about it, but it's okay. I put this chair here because I like to do things a little bit differently and I like to feel comfortable, so I'm just going to sit down a moment. I know you're all really, really hungry. I was told earlier, make it fast, because everybody's hungry, but you know, this is it. So as a parent, that wait and see approach, within reason, so be reasonable with yourself, but that wait and see approach simply doesn't cut it. We have assessments available, and I'll tell you, the assessment process doesn't happen overnight. It's months of waiting. And so when procrastination is involved, it can be months more. And probably the most important aspect of this is just not only can I be an advocate for my children, but my child can be an advocate for himself or herself. As we empower and engage our children, we can let them, as they move into adulthood, tell people and communities around them when they need supports. You've heard of programs like Bell Let's Talk, and Bell Let's Talk is really governed about people asking for help when they need it. And so, again, parents, we can empower our children to be self-advocates for themselves, and that's what I do each and every day. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time. And thank you very much for holding this event. It's very, very important.
Thank you so much, Nathan Starr, for your wonderful, sharing your wonderful experience. Please come in the front to receive your token of appreciation.
This is my new business card.
All right, our last speaker for the night. We're not going to keep you for long, but let's get this done with. And inshallah, I hope you guys are going to be happy with this last presentation. This is Sakeda Dada. She's the founder and president of Smile Canada. Smile is a support services organization dedicated to supporting children living with disabilities and their families. She's a pediatric occupational therapist by profession, and currently she's pursuing a PhD in critical disability studies in School of Health Policy and Management at York University. Her research interest areas include human rights and disability, specifically the rights of refugees and displaced people with disabilities. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Sakena Dada.
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you. So I know I'm the one between you and your dinner. So my presentation is like 50 minutes long. I'm just kidding. So we're gonna scrap the slides, and I hope inshallah, I hope inshallah this presentation is really just gonna tie in some of the things that we've heard. We heard from physicians and clinicians and family members. Like Aisha said, I'm the president of an organization called Smile Canada Support Services. We have a booth here. What I really want to do is talk to you about some of the concerns that we hear over and over and over again from the families we support. And when we started, this is about 10 years ago, we saw a gap in the system and people accessing services and supports. We had conducted a study in 2009 that looked at the lived experiences of Muslim families with children with disabilities or diverse abilities. And everybody was saying the same thing. But what was so interesting is that they were all saying the same things, but they didn't speak the same languages. They weren't from the same ethnic and cultural backgrounds. And so what were those things that they were saying? We continue to hear it today. We work with over 200 families. So I want to share those 3 things, and then I promise I'm done. So bear with me. The first one is that people were continuing and are continuing to face discrimination, whether implicit or explicit. Imagine how it is for a family when their child is experiencing racism, Islamophobia, and ableism, all at the same time. How is it when a family is denied services and supports, even implicitly? And I'm going to share a short story with you. And I've shared this story many times, and every single time it breaks my heart. I got a phone call from a principal in Mississauga last year. And the principal said, we have a student and he's on your list, and I need your help to retain him in school. So I said, well, we're not really advocates of retention, you've come to the wrong place. And the principal said, well, there's some stuff that he's doing that's just completely inappropriate and it's really difficult to work with this child. She named 3 things. The first one is that not only does he know how to read and write, he doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't even know what to do with a pencil or a paper. The second thing, he doesn't communicate with the students and he doesn't socialize. And the third thing is when the bell rings, he has a panic attack and a tantrum and he runs under the table and he hides. This was a Syrian refugee who had just come to Canada. This was a boy who, for majority of his life, was brought up in a refugee camp. And I wanted to jump through the phone and tell this lady that perhaps he was never exposed to formal education. It's not an issue of function, it's not an issue of ability. You know, what about his lived experience? And perhaps he doesn't speak English, and the other students speak English, so maybe they can't communicate. And perhaps, when he hears that bell, and I know you all know what I'm about to say, that perhaps he's thinking of some very traumatic events that have happened to him. And you know, I've shared this story a number of times, and once somebody said, that's just the one incident. You know, and I don't mean to be like the downer before dinner, but it's not just one incident. Just the other day, a Pakistani family, a woman called me and she said, I was at the IEP meeting. And I'm an OT who's worked in schools, I know how it is. But she said, I was at the IEP meeting and they kept talking about how we're making so many exceptions for your child. They're not exceptions, they're accommodations. They're not bonuses, they're not these extra privileges that you're getting. They're a child's right. It's to level the playing field. So that's the first thing. The second thing that families have reported concerns over and over again is difficulty navigating the system. And I hope to share this with all of you so that in your own way and some way or the other, however you are doing it already, to talk to your families and your respective communities about some of these things. Difficulty navigating the system. Not everyone has a chance to meet someone like Dr. Zuberi. Not everyone has a chance to meet an awesome OT. A lot of people, new immigrants and refugees especially, they're coming to Canada, they're not learning about all of this. So the big question is, how do we ensure that everybody knows about this? Everybody knows about Autism Ontario. Everybody knows about some of the awesome supports that we have. How do we ensure that everybody knows about the intersectional needs that people have? And it goes beyond cultural sensitivity. What is cultural sensitivity? You know, it's not enough to be sensitive, but really hears about the lived experiences that people are having. And the final thing, and I know some people have touched upon it. So in addition to facing discrimination and difficulty navigating the system, the final thing was stigma and exclusion from our respective cultural and faith communities. And this is not to pick on any community, because we're all from different communities. We might identify as being Indian or Pakistani, we might identify as being Muslim, but we might identify as being Canadian, of course, but we're still from different communities. We have our neighborhood community, our school community, our masjid community, our center community, and within those, many people report exclusion. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share those three things so that we, in our own way, can go home and have conversations about it and think of all that we've learned today. This is by far the most educational banquet I've ever been to in my life. And kudos for that. But I just wanted to leave on that note, and I promised Aisha didn't ask me to do this. But it's amazing that the Juno Cultural Society of Hamilton has taken on this cause. What a wonderful cause. So before I get off stage, please, on behalf of myself and my team with Smile Canada, and I think I can speak on behalf of Aisha and her team, dig deep into your pockets and talk to your friends about supporting Autism Ontario and get involved with these wonderful, amazing organizations. And let's really make this it's already a success, but let's also make it a financial success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sakina Dada. Can I please have Mr. Usman present the token of appreciation? What an amazing speech that is. What an amazing speech. I know you guys are all hungry, right? I know the hall is full of the aroma of delicious meal. Well, that's the next step, right? But just before we go in towards that, there is something more exciting. We're going to draw our raffle. But just before we draw our raffle, I'm going to quickly ask some Ashi to come on stage and thank all the organization and our sponsors, Let's Buggy and My Financial Solutions. So you guys are more than welcome to do networking with them as well. And over to the question.
We have organizations here with Smile Canada, we have peers, we have Dean Support Services, and we have the two sponsors, My Financial and Let's Buggy, who you can go out and network with. So please, while the raffles are happening, or when we're done with eating, or whatever, make sure you go over and talk to them and ask about what kind of services and resources they are providing for the families in our area. Thank you so much.